We're here in Monte Carlo for the Rendez-Vous de Septembre. For AM Best TV, I'm Richard Banks. And I'm joined now by Devesh Srivastava, who's the Chairman and Managing Director of GIC of India. Welcome.
Good morning, Richard.
So much of the analysis that we see of the global reinsurance industry is based on the ideas from Bermuda and from the US and from European reinsurers. So how does your perception of the industry differ from an Indian perspective?
Not really. You see, when you talk about reinsurance, it's more of a subscription market. So it's not that only we are writing the Indian market. A lot of other reinsurers, global in nature or even local, are also writing the Indian market. And the data that they require is something that the Indian market is willing to produce and give them as well. Because as you are well aware, the Indian market has a lot of these foreign companies who are in truck with the local insurance companies to provide insurance covers to India. Now, with the global companies coming in, they have brought in those global practices, and therefore the data has become as granular as is required. So it is quite in sync with what the global reinsurers require.
Excellent, thank you. So the economic situation is on the top of the agenda for a lot of people here. We're seeing it a lot in the discussions here in Monte Carlo. India is one of the few countries that's predicted to have robust growth. How does that affect the decisions that you're making at GIC of India?
Richard, that's actually a fact and a big boon to us that the economy in India is picking up very rapidly and is on the upswing. In fact, the government is doing a great deal to ensure that we move ahead. Now, if that be the case, there is a lot of infrastructure that is being built up and a lot of other things that are happening in the service sector, in the manufacturing sector. Now, all this augurs well for us as reinsurers. And I must also add, the pandemic has, done wonders for, people getting insurance as something of an agenda in their monthly budget. That is something that was not there earlier, but pandemic has ensured that you start spending on insurance. So now if retail insurance picks up, that's a very good green shoot for us as insurers and reinsurers.
So I wanted to talk to you about that because the opportunity for insurance penetration to grow in India seems to be improving. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that means from your perspective?
Yes, most certainly, Richard, because the penetration in India currently, at least in non-life, is so abysmally low that definitely sky is the limit. And the Indian market is not a small market. I mean, when you're talking about a population of 1.3 billion plus, who are now into the demand of meeting demands and seeking a lot of insurance covers to maintain their lifestyles. It is a good scene to have that. And the pandemic actually has ensured that people do go in for these covers, which is something that's happening very well for us in the industry.
And of course, India is a hugely important market in the global reinsurance scene.
That's very true, Richard. In fact, if you see the insurance companies that are operating out of India, any big name in the global scenario that comes to your mind is already there in operation. And there is a reason behind it. As I said earlier, that our penetration currently is abysmally low. So we have a huge potential waiting for us here. And that high growth market we speak about is not a small market. It's a market that's going to overtake the likes of Germany and Italy. And this is from the Swiss Re Sigma report. Germany and Italy in the next 3 to 4 years. Now, if that be the market and that is growing at an enormous rate of 15 to 20% year on year, you certainly have a market that is very attractive to everyone. And reinsurers are also going to benefit out of it.
And of course, you're not just focused on India itself. You have a wider remit. Can you tell us a little bit about how that ties in, and particularly how that ties in with what you're seeing in India?
Yes, certainly, Richard. I mean, one of the basic tenets of reinsurance is spread, because that's how reinsurers function. So even we in GIC operate out of 160 countries. Not operate really. I mean, we give cover to 160 countries. We have our own syndicate at Lloyd's. We have our branches abroad as well. The idea is to balance out your book. Currently, we are 65% domestic and 35% foreign. That's for the business which currently is. We will reach about 60-40 and then eventually 50-50 in the long run. But that's where GIC stands today.
And how easy is it for reinsurance to remain a global industry? We're seeing from some of the reports that we're seeing, even here in Monte Carlo, that some of the markets become very dislocated.
True, Richard, but I feel that reinsurance is a long-term trade and it's a very stable trade by nature. That's is very, way the reinsurers operate. So if you are in a country and you have to have that commitment to be with your partners for the long term, it is not a fly-by-night operator. Definitely not. Then nobody would choose you as a reinsurer. Your reinsurance panels have to be very stable for 20, 25 years because there is so many gray areas that you can fulfill when you have a stable panel of reinsurers and they know the underwriters or the cedents whose business they are writing. That is very important for the trade of reinsurance. And we are definitely committed for all our markets for the long term. That's how GIC operates. I think it's also a very Indian psyche to be in anything for a long term. Nothing short term works.
So people are starting to talk in general terms about a hard reinsurance market, particularly in some of the property lines. A lot of people won't have encountered those conditions before. How does that affect your perspective and the looking to the future?
That's a fact, Richard. For a lot of people who are now in their mid 20s and 30s, they have never seen a hard market. So people would be experiencing it for the first time. But then that is how the demand and supply works. Currently, it is definitely a hard market phase. We're experiencing it in India as well. Rates are going up and the deductibles are going up. So those are these important factors that are now ensuring that your portfolio emerges much healthier than it was before. And since capital is not in abundance, this is something that is translating into rates hardening. And this market phase, I think, is going to continue for the next couple of years, I feel.
And how does that tally with that increased demand for insurance and reinsurance? How do you balance those two sides of the equation?
Right. So, Richard, the first thing is that the need and the demand for insurance has grown. Now, once that happens, with a middle class which is huge in India, they want good covers that has a lot of satisfaction to their mental well-being. Now, with that, they are willing to go their extra mile and pay extra for good services, for good covers, which takes care of their requirements. So that is actually in sync. People are obviously, see, insurance is something that is not very much on top of your agenda when you are budgeting your even your company's budget or your household budget. But now that this has become something important, people are willing to pay that extra amount because they realize, everybody is well read. They know the market is what it is. It's a global village. They do read about what is happening around the world, and they know that India is not insulated in its approach in going ahead with the insurance requirements and therefore the prices that you see.
And in terms of innovation, in terms of designing products that are going to be attractive to those middle class and I guess all sorts of potential audience out there for these products.
Yes, definitely. There is a huge gap that is, a need for which is felt. So the regulator also is trying to promote the sandbox approach in which the insurers, they go ahead and with a product and see how well it features and fares and then make it a permanent thing. Now that is happening in a great deal in India, and also the insurtechs that, in India being so ahead of the curve as far as the software insurtechs go, they are also ensuring that a lot of these covers that are required are now given to the public at large, and those gaps that is felt are filled up as soon as possible. So that is something that's definitely on and is becoming almost a practice now.
Great, thank you. Mr. Srivastava, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much.
For AM Best TV, I'm Richard Banks.